Hey everybody, Joe from Home Crush here. I don't usually do unboxing videos, but I've got a very special box here. Yep, Christmas has come early to Nashville, and I must have been a very good boy this year because a few weeks ago Santa delivered a set of full-frame Meike Cine lenses, including the not yet released 24mm.
So lucky.
Now wait one darn second there, Joe. I can plainly see 3 empty holes in that there case. Where do you get off calling this a full set? Because a 24, 50, and 85 constitute the classic cinema lens troika that a narrative filmmaker needs to comfortably shoot 99% of the time. Wider and longer lenses really fall into the specialty category, and focal lengths in between can be achieved by moving a few steps forward or back. But how good can they be, Joe? Sure, you showed us that Meike makes some good micro four thirds lenses, but they only need to cover a tiny sensor. A full-frame image circle is much more challenging. At less than $1,000 each, surely there must be significant build and optical quality compromises, right? I hope you stick around and watch the rest of the video, but the too long didn't read version is that these lenses kick ass. Are they perfect? No. Do they punch way above their weight class? Hell yeah. Now don't worry, I'll stop blabbering soon and show you the objective tests. But I've had these lenses on an 8K camera for a few weeks now, and I can say with some confidence that I'd use these lenses on any project of any budget. I'm likely to only rent alternatives if I need a specific vintage look. Okay, one more thing before I get to the tests. I had intended to include a complete short film, The Morning After, shot with the Meike lenses as part of this video, but due to actors' schedules, I won't be able to shoot it for a few more weeks. So be sure to subscribe if you want to be notified when it's ready sometime in November. Speaking of short films, have you seen Coffee, Coffee, Coffee? It's my first attempt at directing comedy, and while I personally may not be funny, the amazing cast certainly is. Check it out. Just don't do it at work, it's chock full of potty language. Alright, ready? Let's get on
He's crazy.
talk lenses. If Meike's Super 35 lenses are a step up in feel from their Micro Four Thirds lenses, then these full-frame lenses are another step even beyond that. The focus and aperture rings are silky smooth, and they have a satisfying fluid feel. None of that plastic on plastic or metal on metal feel you typically get from budget lenses. The gears are machined into the actual lens metal in the same place on all three, and all three lenses are the same length. Not kinda sorta close, the same. Focus motors, matte boxes, lens supports, none of them have to be adjusted. Thank you, Meike. There are weight differences between the three, but they are close enough that I was able to balance my gimbal with the 50 and then swap in the 24 or 80 without rebalancing. Speaking of size, compared to their Micro Four Thirds cousins, these suckers are chunks. For example, the 25mm Micro Four Thirds lens weighs 586 grams, while the equivalent 50mm full-frame lens weighs in at a substantial 1100 grams. So side note, size is an advantage of the Micro Four Thirds format that I don't think gets enough attention. Smaller, lighter lenses allow almost every other aspect of your camera package to be smaller, lighter, and usually cheaper. It's a big commitment to move up to full-frame glass. Not only are the cameras in glass much more expensive, but they require bigger, more expensive support gear. Of course, by cinema standards, you'd classify the Meike full-frame lenses as compacts. For comparison, the 50mm RE Master Prime weighs almost 6 pounds and is about twice as long.
That's what she said.
Personally, I find the Meikes to be a comfortable size. They're big enough that you can get your hands in there and manipulate your rig, or even have a camera assistant do it. But they're not so big that I had to replace my various support systems, except for my iFootage motorized pan tilt head. That was not up to the task. Speaking of operating, the lenses have inscribed high contrast markings that should stand up to a lot of handling and are easy to see in dim light. Distance is marked in both metric and imperial units on both sides of the lens. Unfortunately, aperture markings are only on the operator side. All three lenses have the same front diameter, threading the same 82mm filters. This is my favorite filter size. Now, some cinema lenses use even bigger filters, but 82mm is the biggest common size.
That's what she said.
There's virtually no circular filter not available in this size, so I can buy a filter once and throw step-up rings on smaller lenses. Like I do with all my lenses, the first thing I did to these was to screw on zoom adapters because, well, magnets. Unlike their Micro Four Thirds forebears, the full-frame lenses all ship with clearly marked slip-on caps, like any proper cinema lens should. If you buy at least 3 lenses, Meike throws in this hard case. It's the perfect size, and the custom foam inserts are solid. Unlike piece of shit, pick and pack foam. Now, I wouldn't trust it to be completely waterproof like a Pelican case, but it'll certainly withstand weather and travel. Did I mention how nice the focus feels on these lenses? So satisfying. They all have the same 360-degree throw, so if you're not using a focus motor, they make it very easy to consistently pull smooth focus. Well, as easy as it can ever be to pull focus at t2.1 on a full-frame camera, which is to say, ridiculously hard. But at least when you miss focus on the actor's eye and instead focus on their ear, it'll feel really nice and smooth. All right, the tests. First up, my standard test scene. All 3 Meike full-frame lenses render our test scene similarly, except for obviously and thankfully the field of view. There are differences that later tests will reveal, but even side by side you can see that in real-world scenarios you'll have no issues cutting these lenses together. No surprises here. 24mm, 50mm, and 85mm allow for a nice range of views without moving your camera. I know that the generations of filmmakers younger than me who cut their teeth vlogging and shooting on gimbals have a tendency to favor wider lenses, but really, I have a hard time imagining when I would use a wider field of view for a narrative or documentary film. And if I were to go too much more telephoto, I'd have to use a walkie-talkie to direct my actors. While not unique to these Meikes, I think it's useful to show how different lenses will render a face very differently when framed to the same size. Remember, this is not because of optical distortion. It's purely a result of how close the lens must be to the subject to keep a similar frame. The relative distance between my ears and nose is much greater when the camera is 6 inches away from my face than when it is 6 feet away. As should be expected, a 24mm portrait does not look normal or flattering, and should only be shot for specific effect. The 85mm is long enough to compress distance and yield the classic portrait look. All 3 Meike full-frame lenses are sharp, even wide open at t2.1, which, by the way, is comparable to what most still lenses would label f1.8. They hit peak corner sharpness by t4, and just in case you're filming on the surface of the sun, they only lose a little sharpness to diffraction even at their minimum aperture of t22. Now charts are one thing, but how sharp and detailed do these lenses feel shooting in the real world? Well, I'm shooting on the most detailed camera I've ever tested, the Sony A1. These lenses have no problem resolving 8K, and if I nail focus, I have no problem blowing that up to 200%. In fact, for most narrative looks, I'm likely to soften these lenses in post. The 24mm has less than 10% barrel distortion. Quite good for a full-frame lens this wide, and a quick fix and resolve. The 50mm and 85mm both have about 6% barrel distortion. I'm a little surprised the 85mm has even that much, but again, this is very easy to resolve in Resolve. Honestly, this is such a small amount that I wouldn't bother correcting it unless a shot featured perfectly straight lines near the edge of the frame. None of the Meike full-frame lenses suffer from much chromatic aberration. You are unlikely to see any in a normal scene. If you try really hard, you can force it in the corners. The 50mm has near red, far blue fringing, and the 24 and 85 have more typical near yellow, far purple fringing. It's so minimal that even when I can reveal it, it's not enough that I would even bother correcting in post. The Meike full-frame lenses are of a modern design with modern coatings, so I expected flaring to be well controlled, and that is certainly the case. The 24mm exhibits the most distinct burst pattern, and the 50mm reveals the most internal reflections. They are all resistant to veiling from out-of-frame sources, and even point sources in the frame must be shining directly into the lens to flare. Sorry, J.J. Abrams. If you're looking to intentionally flare, you'll need to add a filter. Personally, I like this choice. It's easy to grunge up a modern lens. It's not possible to clean up a vintage lens. The full frame Meikes perform as expected here. The shorter the focal length, the shorter the minimum focus distance. They all work within a comfortable range. Just know that you're not going to get macro-like shots out of the 85mm without a diopter. All three Meike lenses breathe. The 50mm more than I would like, but even it's manageable. By the way, don't confuse edges growing equally in all directions as they blur out of focus with breathing, which is the actual lens zoom factor changing with the focus. Perhaps no aspect of a lens's performance is more subjective than how it renders out-of-focus objects, especially point lights. So I'll let you judge for yourself if the Meike full-frame lens's bokeh is good or bad. For my part, I don't care much about bokeh balls. I shoot movies with people, not B-roll of out-of-focus streetlights at night. Personally, I quite like these lenses' creaminess in out-of-focus areas, as well as the natural-looking transition between in and out-of-focus areas. The 10 aperture blades begin to reveal themselves around T8. In the interest of being objective, note that the 24mm bokeh balls reveal some onion skinning, and that bokeh balls on all three noticeably distort towards the edges. When I consider the color rendering of a lens, there are really two considerations. How does the lens match against a known standard, and how does the lens match against the rest of its set? Now I know that my Aperture 600D through my softbox measures in at almost exactly 5200 Kelvin. I also know that on my Sony A1, the exceptionally clean Sigma 35mm high-speed prime meters at 5200 Kelvin, yielding a perfectly neutral gray in post. The Meike 24 and 50 also meter 5200 Kelvin in camera and need only the same tiny magenta nudge to be perfectly neutral. But the 85mm is noticeably more yellow, 250 degrees warmer and about 10 clicks greener in Resolve's white balance tools. This is a small enough difference that it's easy to correct in post with no ill effect, but it is large enough difference that it can be noticeable when intercutting. Now I know I'm nitpicking, but it's annoying to have to remember to make this correction with a lens set that is otherwise so well matched. Otherwise, know that the 50mm is a tiny bit brighter than the other two, but not enough to bother changing exposure. And the 85mm is a bit less contrasted, just enough that you might need to adjust when shot matching. So if there's one takeaway here, it's that the 85mm is the odd man out. At least my copy. The differences are small enough that maybe this is just due to manufacturing tolerances. Another copy of the 85 might match better. Unless Meike sends me another copy to test or someone leaves a comment, I just can't know for sure. Okay, I think that just about covers it. The Meike full-frame cinema line is populated with well-built, optically clean, well-matched lenses that perform similarly to lenses costing many times more. I have a good amount of experience with Sigma's cinema glass, and I put the Meikes up against them even though they cost about 3.5 times less. If you have a full-frame camera, or even a Super 35 camera and you want to future-proof a bit, you'd do well to consider these Meikes. The Rokinons are the only other budget full-frame lenses I have personal experience with. Now, if you're worried that T2.1 isn't fast enough and are tempted by the Xene's 1.5 aperture, don't be. Not only are the Rokinon/Xenes very soft wide open, but it's also impractical to focus on a moving subject with a full-frame camera that wide open. I know some Superman godlike focus puller is going to comment that they can do it easily. Yay for you. The rest of us mortals won't be going below 2.8 and will be more comfortably sitting at T4. And besides, the Meikes match better too. I'd love to test against the DZO Vespids and some other competitors. With any luck, I'll be able to do that before the end of the year. Regardless, I hope you found this review helpful. If so, consider liking and subscribing. Every time you do, I earn exactly nothing, but it might help someone else find this review. Now I'm going to go work on my next movie, and you should too. So get out there and crush it.